Arab Americans for Syria with Johnny Achi. We're going to play a clip from an RT interview about Christians in Syria, how they've faded, how they survived, how they've flourished under the Socialist Arab Ba'athist Party under President Bashir, and an analysis and their point of view. And then we'll have Brother Johnny Achi giving us an update on the continued crisis in Syria following now.
Away from the battles in this long-running conflict, time feels like it has almost stopped. Even the children here speak an ancient, almost forgotten language.
The village of Ma'alula in central Syria is a unique place. It's well known in the world as the only place on earth where people speak Aramaic, the language of Jesus Christ.
Home to an Orthodox shrine, a 4th century Catholic church, and dozens of mosques, this town's religious heritage is solid.
We are afraid that these people will come here to try to disturb us and destroy our peaceful life, as they did in Homs and many cities. But we trust the army and security and state.
For decades, the government of President Bashar al-Assad, who is himself from the Shia Islam minority Alawi sect, has protected the interests of 10% of the country's population who are Christians by enforcing its strictly secular program and by curbing the influence of radicalism.
We used to live in peace, Muslims and Christians. Of course we're afraid people from outside the city and the country may come and destroy this unity. Assad became more than just the head of state. He is a kind of international symbol of this fight for our life.
Mother Pelagia of the St. Thecla Monastery says the people here didn't join the uprising not because they were scared of the regime, but because they were scared to lose this regime.
There were people here. They wanted to push us against the government, the president, the army. If you hear the army enter the city and kill people, believe me, this is a mistake. The army is here to protect people. God bless Assad. He did a lot to protect this state and make it strong. Our country before the crisis was developing. Now we are all losing. Jesus said, any kingdom that splits will die fast. These people are receiving money and listening to the orders. They want to ruin this country.
We are not talking about normal people, but people with an extremist way of thinking.
In the town's church, the children continue to pray in Aramaic, Arabic, Greek, French, but it's clear the prayers of the people of this unique town are understood in any language. Marif Noshinati, Ma'alula, Syria.
I'd like to welcome Johnny Achi from Arab Americans for Syria. I thought it was important to play that clip for our listening audience so they get a better understanding of the dynamics that are occurring today in Syria. And maybe Johnny can give us an update on recent developments with this new alliance between Al-Qaeda, Iraq, and Nusra, a powerful alliance given the fact that the vanguard rebel fighting force is in fact this particular group. Brother Johnny, welcome to Southern California.
Thank you, Didan. Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it. And I was listening to that clip. It is an awesome clip you played. That's what we like to say, that my views, a lot of people say, Johnny, you're biased with your views. I say, yes, my views might be biased. It does represent the other side, but it is the views of most Syrians who live in Syria. And most Syrians' views, including mine, are not being given not just equal time, but any time in mainstream media. And that's why where we are today, because the mainstream media has said nothing but lies about what was really going on in Syria. This lady who is in Aramaic, who is an original Syrian, it tells you that before the army, they would scare us about the armies going in to flee, to go to the neighboring countries and go live in tents as refugees. But there was nothing of that sort. The army does not kill its own people. The army has never done that in Syria, never shot at a peaceful protester. Everything we've been seen and told was a mere lie. Now, the joint front you talked about between Al-Qaeda in Iraq and Al-Qaeda in Syria, both giving loyalty to Ayman al-Zawahiri, which is Al-Qaeda and, the main Al-Qaeda. Nusra front uniting with Al-Qaeda is a big move. It's something I don't understand how the Obama government is going to deal with it. Now, we know that the Obama government has a lot of ties to these foreign fighters in Syria. I mean, the CIA and its regional allies in the area have been supporting the opposition to destabilize Syria. We know that, to topple the Assad regime. We know that. That's a fact. The State Department admits that readily. Now, what they don't tell us that the Syrian rebels are not Syrians at all.
Mm-hmm.
So they realize that every Syrian who was carrying weapons, what they call the Free Syrian armies and whatnot, have dropped their weapons. They don't want to kill other Syrians. They realize that this is a war on Syria, funded by Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Israel, United States, all the enemies, the historical enemies of Syria, to try to bring all these jihadists, just like they did in Afghanistan. The United States did it before. It's not like they haven't done it before. They've done it. They've used mujahideen to go take out the Russians in Afghanistan, and then they figured they will deal with it. Now, every mujahideen in the world ends in Syria. Tens of thousands of those fighters are committing atrocities, suicide bombing into civilian neighborhoods. One happened just 3 days ago that took the lives of children that were coming out of school. Prayers from mosque. It was between a mosque, a children, and a bank, a school and a bank. Took out nothing but civilians. And because it's in Damascus, they're trying to punish the people of Damascus for never going out and protest against Bashar al-Assad. We've seen what happened in Tunisia and Libya. Syrians are not dumb. They've seen Syria were enjoying the best life of their life in 2010, just prior to the crisis. We were the only country in the Middle East where the whole world was going into financial difficulties that we had a 5% GDP. People in Syria were enjoying their best life. The secular government that we enjoy in the secular life. And in the beginning of the crisis, Bashar al-Assad said, we're going to have reforms, either the multi-party system, called for re-election, parliament election. They refused all that. They said, no, we don't want that reform. We want you down, just like everybody else tried to, and then we have that foreign intervention immediately. Now, since the end of the Cold War, we know that the United States have used, to go into Yugoslavia, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, and they always fight higher motives or good intentions. But in reality, we know that they have a corporate role in igniting, fueling, and materializing the internal conflict. They would love for this to go on forever because it's serving their interests. The Syrian army is being destroyed, and that's their goal. When they went into Iraq, the first thing they did was dismantle the Iraqi army. And that led to 1.5 million deaths in Iraq, because when you don't have an army or security forces and you ignite or incite sectarian divisions, of course people are going to go into civil war. They're trying to do the same thing in Syria. And for them, it's a win-win situation. They're bringing in all the bad people in the world as all the terrorists and mujahideen, and let them kill each other and finish themselves off. For people who are not Syrians and people who are not peace-loving people, they would say, well, so what? Let them go kill each other. Well, no, I'm a Syrian American, and I am a peace activist, and I refuse to see my tax dollars go to kill more people around the world. Mm-hmm. Okay? So we need to call for the peaceful solution, which is already there, Iran. The solution in Syria is very easy. Kofi Annan had brokered an agreement in Geneva in June of 2012 as a foundation of peace that was promptly squandered by the United States. They refused it after they signed on to it. Okay? All 5 of the permanent members of the U.S. Security Council, and we spoke about this again, but I have to appeal because that is the way out. They were to do free elections, a new transitional government that would have a national unity, including members of both existing government and the opposition. At that time, a week later, the Russians submitted an agreement based on the Geneva Agreement into the United Nations, as Kofi Annan requested and expected. But instead of honoring their commitment, U.S., UK, and France rejected it. And instead, they drafted a new agreement which had previously prevented consensus, which called for automatic triggers of sanctions, no commitment to rebels, and of course the Chapter 7 of the United Nations to a pretext for future military action. So, this is what was doing. Too much foreign intervention is not allowing the Syrian peace process to take place.
2 points. One, as a black person, as an African, we've heard the rationalization as a people, my people, in terms of why slavery was better for us, why colonialism was good for us, why segregation was good for us. So we're used to these white man's lies, these European lies, to rationalize just pure greed. And number 2, I remember the German intelligence, BND, stated that only 5% of the fighters are Syrians. And then I read another article, 21 countries, jihadists from 21 countries are now in Syria. And more importantly, I heard on another program, Ian Masters' program, where they had a Saudi Arabian scholar talked about how, in fact, it's being programmed for internal civil war because you have Saudi Arabia supporting one group of jihadists, and I think Qatar supporting the Muslim Brotherhood, another group of jihadists, sure. And that at a certain point, we're seeing, especially in the New York Times, articles about these jihadist groups fighting among themselves. But more importantly, the fact that this has been almost a 3-year war or war against these rebels. Obviously, there must be popular support for the present government for them to sustain a war for 3 years without the military, without the citizens overthrowing the present government, if they were so upset with the present government, giving them millions, if not billions of dollars being flooded into the country for briberies, for buying off officers, for buying off civil service, as well as providing all kind of aid to these jihadists whose sole mission is to try to move back, especially women, but society, back to the feudal period, which serves the interests of U.S. imperialism, because they can then have a monopoly on the oil. We've got to move on, my brother. But we thank you very much, and we'll continue with the update on Syria from Arab Americans for Syria, Johnny Achi. We thank you very, very much, my brother.